From Europe's discreet private banks to royal fortunes reshaping global markets, some dynasties have turned money into generational power. In this video, we'll explore the top 10 banking families that still dominate the flow of wealth. Starting with the Lazards and Warburgs, who built influence through trust and strategy, to the Barings and Hottingers, whose names once guided empires. We'll look at the Morgans and Oppenheims, who shaped modern finance, and the Safras and Rothschilds, who became symbols of global banking. Then we uncover the Rockefellers' transition from oil to Wall Street, and finally the House of Saud, controlling one of the largest sovereign funds on Earth. These dynasties don't just hold wealth, they shape history itself. In the number 10 position, we have the Lazard family, a dynasty that began with three brothers from France who saw opportunity far beyond their small hometown. In 1848, Alexandre, Lazard, and Simon Lazard opened a dry goods store in New Orleans. But they quickly realized money, not merchandise, was where the real power lay. Within a few years, they shifted into banking. And from that bold decision, the Lazard name would grow into one of the most influential financial institutions in the world. What makes the Lazard story so fascinating is how they thrived by being advisors rather than rulers. While other banks loaned governments money or speculated wildly, Lazard carved out a reputation as the trusted voice behind the scenes. From massive mergers and acquisitions to guiding governments through economic crises, they became the quiet hand shaping the destinies of companies and nations alike. Their power wasn't in flashy displays of wealth, but in influence, deciding who merged, who collapsed, and who survived. Today, Lazard is still a global powerhouse in financial advisory and asset management, with offices stretching from Paris to New York. And although the founding brothers are long gone, their legacy is alive in the firm's culture of discretion, strategy, and long-term vision. The Lazard dynasty proves that wealth isn't always about headlines or royal palaces. It can also be built through trust, intelligence, and the ability to solve problems that others cannot. For viewers, this family's journey sets the stage for our countdown. Dynasties that rose from humble beginnings to dominate global banking. The Lazards remind us that sometimes the most powerful empires are the ones built quietly, where the real influence lies not in what you see, but in the decisions made behind closed doors. In the number 9 position, we have the Warburg family, one of Europe's oldest and most respected banking dynasties. Their story begins in Hamburg in the late 1700s, when Moses Marcus Warburg and his brother Gerson established Warburg & Co. At the time, it was just a local banking house, but over the centuries, it grew into a name that carried weight across Europe's financial world. The Warburgs were not only bankers, they became trusted advisors to governments, businesses, and even royal families. What sets the Warburgs apart is their ability to adapt to the shifting tides of history. In the 19th century, they financed trade and commerce that fueled Europe's industrial growth. By the early 20th century, they had spread their influence to London and New York, helping to shape the foundations of modern banking. The Warburg name became linked to innovation, as family members introduced new ideas in investment strategy and corporate finance that others would later adopt worldwide. But the family's journey wasn't without hardship. During World War II, the Warburgs, being Jewish, faced persecution in Nazi Germany. Many were forced to flee, but instead of losing everything, they rebuilt their influence abroad. In America, Paul Warburg played a key role in the creation of the Federal Reserve, cementing the family's global footprint. Today, the Warburg legacy continues through institutions like Warburg Pincus, one of the world's leading private equity firms. Their story is one of resilience, reinvention, and a determination to maintain influence no matter the obstacles. For viewers, the Warburg dynasty reveals how banking families aren't just about money. They are about ideas, strategies, and the ability to survive history's storms while still shaping the financial systems we all live under. In the number 8 position, we have the Baring family of Britain, once known as the Queen's Bankers. Their dynasty began in 1762 when Francis Baring founded Baring Brothers & Co., a merchant bank in London. Over the next 2 centuries, the Barings grew into one of the most powerful financial houses in the world, advising monarchs, funding governments and financing the expansion of empires. Their reputation was so strong that they were trusted with handling the royal family's private accounts, an honor few could claim. What makes the Barings story so compelling is the scale of their influence. In the 19th century, they financed everything from railroads in North America to wars in Europe. They were deeply connected to global trade and even played a role in the Louisiana Purchase, helping the United States secure land that would double its size. At their peak, the Barings weren't just bankers. They were power brokers who shaped the direction of nations. But like many dynasties, their story also carries a cautionary note. In 1995, Baring Brothers collapsed spectacularly after a rogue trader in Singapore caused losses of over $1 billion, an event that shocked the financial world. While the family had long stepped back from daily management, the name Baring became linked with both triumph and downfall. Even so, the dynasty's wealth and legacy endured. The Baring name continues in wealth management firms and family investments, proving that their influence never truly disappeared. For viewers, the Baring family represents both the heights and the risks of old banking dynasties. They remind us that when your fortune is built on global finance, the rewards are staggering, but so are the risks, and sometimes a single mistake can bring down centuries of power. In the number 7 position, we have the Hottinger family, a dynasty that dates back to the late 1700s and has left an indelible mark on Swiss and French banking. The story begins with Jean Conrad Hottinger, who in 1786 became a partner in a Parisian bank that would eventually carry his name. At a time when Europe was full of upheaval, revolutions, wars, and shifting empires, the Hottingers quietly built a reputation for stability and trust. Their strength lay in discretion. Unlike some banking families who craved the spotlight, the Hottingers understood that true influence in finance came from working behind closed doors. They focused on private banking, wealth management, and long-term advisory services for elite clients. By managing fortunes across generations, they built a reputation as guardians of wealth rather than speculators chasing glory. The family also tied themselves deeply to international networks. As France shifted from monarchy to republic and back again, the Hottingers adapted, aligning their services with whoever held power. In Switzerland, they became known as pioneers of private banking, offering safe havens for aristocrats, industrialists, and political leaders looking to secure their fortunes in uncertain times. Though their global presence today is smaller compared to giants like Rothschild or Morgan, the Hottinger family still operates in wealth management, continuing their centuries-long tradition of financial stewardship. Their name carries weight in Geneva and Paris, where old money values of discretion and stability still matter. For viewers, the Hottinger dynasty shows how some banking families didn't need to dominate the headlines to remain influential. By staying quiet, careful, and loyal to their clients, the Hottingers carved out a legacy of trust. In the world of old banking dynasties, they remind us that power often thrives in silence. In the number 6 position, we have the Morgan family, one of America's most powerful and feared dynasties in banking history. The story truly begins with J. Pierpont Morgan, a larger-than-life figure whose influence over Wall Street and Washington made him a financial kingmaker in the late 1800s and early 1900s. At a time when the U.S. economy faced repeated crises, it was often Morgan, not the government, who stepped in to rescue banks, railroads, and even the entire financial system. What made J.P. Morgan unique was his ability to control markets through sheer reputation. When panic hit in 1907, Morgan locked bankers in his library until they agreed on a rescue plan, stabilizing the economy almost single-handedly. His empire funded giants like U.S. Steel, General Electric, and countless railroads, making him a symbol of American capitalism. But the Morgan influence didn't end with J.P. himself. The family's financial legacy evolved into what is now J.P. Morgan Chase, the largest bank in the United States and one of the most powerful in the world. Though the Morgan name is no longer attached to every decision, the dynasty's fingerprints remain on modern banking, mergers, and corporate finance. Despite their massive wealth, the Morgans also left a cultural legacy. J.P. Morgan was an avid art collector, and his treasures helped build the famous Morgan Library in New York, a reminder that dynasties often shape not only money, but also culture. For viewers, the Morgan family story captures the drama of American finance at its peak. They remind us that banking dynasties are not just about counting coins. They can wield power equal to governments, deciding the fate of industries and, at times, entire nations. The Morgans built a fortune, but more importantly, they built influence that still echoes today. In the number 5 position, we have the Oppenheim family of Germany, founders of one of Europe's most prestigious private banks, Sal. Oppenheim. Established in 1789 by Salomon Oppenheim Jr., this dynasty rose during a period of massive political change, surviving revolutions, wars, and empires to become the trusted bankers of Europe's elite. Over generations, the Oppenheims carved out a reputation for reliability, discretion, and a deep connection to Germany's industrial and political life. What set them apart was their role as private bankers to aristocrats, governments, and leading companies. Unlike investment houses chasing headlines, Sal Oppenheim specialized in safeguarding fortunes and advising the powerful. Their wealth was built not on flashy speculation, but on nurturing long-term relationships, making them one of Europe's financial cornerstones throughout the 19th and 20th centuries. The Oppenheims' influence extended far beyond banking. They became patrons of the arts, philanthropists, and symbols of Germany's old money elite. Their name carried weight in both financial and social circles, a sign of how deeply a banking dynasty could weave itself into the fabric of national life. But even great dynasties face storms. By the early 2000s, risky investments and scandals shook the Oppenheim legacy, eventually leading to their bank's acquisition by Deutsche Bank in 2010. While the institution they built no longer stands independent, the family name remains tied to centuries of financial leadership and cultural influence. For viewers, the Oppenheim story is both inspiring and cautionary. It shows how a family can build immense power over generations through trust and discretion, but also how fragile even the strongest reputations can be when risk overshadows tradition. Their legacy is a reminder that in banking, wealth may be preserved, but influence must constantly be defended. In the number 4 position, we have the Safra family, a dynasty that turned centuries of Middle Eastern trading tradition into one of the most powerful names in modern private banking. Their story begins in Aleppo, Syria, where the Safras worked as gold and currency traders along the ancient Silk Road. Over time, the family carried this financial expertise to Lebanon, then expanded globally, with their fortunes reaching new heights in Brazil and Switzerland. The most famous figure in this dynasty is Edmund Safra, who built Republic National Bank of New York into a global force before selling it for billions. Known for his sharp mind and unmatched discretion, Edmund became the go-to banker for industrialists, royals, and billionaires who needed their fortunes managed with absolute confidentiality. His tragic death in 1999 under mysterious circumstances in Monaco only added to the aura surrounding the family. Today, the Safra empire is anchored in Banco Safra in Brazil and J. Safra Sarasin in Switzerland, with combined assets worth tens of billions. The family also holds enormous stakes in real estate, including landmark buildings in New York, London, and São Paulo. Their portfolio reflects their philosophy: diversify wealth, protect it fiercely, and always think in terms of generations rather than years. What makes the Safra dynasty so captivating is their ability to bridge cultures. From their Levantine trading roots to their role as discreet Swiss bankers, the family embodies the evolution of global finance. For viewers, their story is a reminder that old money isn't just European. It can come from families who carried centuries of financial knowledge across continents, transforming it into empires that continue to influence the world today. In the number 3 position, we have the Rothschild family, perhaps the most legendary name in global finance. Their story begins in Frankfurt in the late 1700s with Mayor Amschel Rothschild, who laid the foundation of a dynasty by sending his 5 sons to the great capitals of Europe: London, Paris, Vienna, Naples, and Frankfurt. This brilliant move created a financial network that no single monarchy or empire could rival. The Rothschilds weren't just bankers, they became the backbone of European finance for more than a century. Their influence was unmatched. They financed wars, including the Napoleonic campaigns, underwrote railways that connected nations, and provided sovereign loans that kept empires afloat. Their system of rapid communication, couriers and carrier pigeons, often gave them critical financial information before governments even knew what was happening. That knowledge translated into wealth and power, making the Rothschilds synonymous with control of global finance. Though myths and conspiracy theories have often surrounded their name, the truth is that their wealth and influence came from an unrivaled combination of trust, innovation, and reach. For decades, they were the bankers of kings and governments, shaping Europe's political and economic landscape. Today, Rothschild & Co. remains a leading global financial advisory firm, focusing on investment banking, asset management, and wealth preservation. While the family is no longer as dominant as in the 19th century, they continue to exert quiet influence, with branches of the dynasty still holding key roles in finance and philanthropy. For viewers, the Rothschild story is the ultimate tale of a banking dynasty, from a single shop in Frankfurt to a family network that stretched across continents and centuries. Their name alone still evokes power, secrecy, and a legacy that helped define the very idea of modern banking. In the number 2 position, we have the Rockefeller family, a dynasty whose roots lie in oil, but whose influence spread deep into banking and finance. John D. Rockefeller built Standard Oil into one of the largest monopolies the world has ever seen, creating wealth on a scale never before imagined. But what's often overlooked is how the Rockefellers turned that oil fortune into a financial empire that continues to shape global markets today. Their banking legacy began with Chase Manhattan Bank, which became one of the most powerful institutions in the United States. By the mid-20th century, under David Rockefeller's leadership, Chase Manhattan expanded into a global financial giant, forming relationships with world leaders and multinational corporations. Eventually, Chase merged into what we now know as J.P. Morgan Chase, the largest bank in America. That means the Rockefeller fingerprint is still present in the heart of modern banking. Beyond institutions, the family also built immense influence through private investments and philanthropy. The Rockefeller Foundation, Rockefeller Capital Management, and numerous family offices continue to manage billions, funding everything from medical research to global development. Their role is not just about money, it's about shaping policy, ideas, and even culture. What makes the Rockefeller story so compelling is the way they transform raw industrial wealth into lasting financial power. Unlike many dynasties that fade with time, the Rockefellers adapted, ensuring their influence extended beyond oil wells and into the very structure of global banking. For viewers, the Rockefeller family represents the bridge between old-world industry and modern finance. They remind us that dynasties are not defined only by where their wealth began, but by how skillfully they preserve and expand it. Their name continues to stand as a symbol of American power, influence, and longevity in the world of money. In the number 1 position, we have the House of Saud, a dynasty whose power goes far beyond royal palaces and desert oil fields. This ruling family of Saudi Arabia commands one of the most staggering fortunes in history, with wealth tied not only to oil, but also to some of the largest financial institutions on earth. Through the Public Investment Fund, or PIF, they control assets worth hundreds of billions, fueling global deals, investing in top tech companies, and even buying sports teams to extend their influence worldwide. The family's rise is rooted in the 1930s discovery of oil, which transformed Saudi Arabia from a desert kingdom into the world's energy superpower. But the House of Saud didn't stop at oil. They funneled that wealth into banks, sovereign wealth funds, and global investments that stretch from Wall Street to Silicon Valley. Today, their money flows through every sector imaginable: finance, real estate, technology, and entertainment. What sets the House of Saud apart is the scale of their control. Unlike other dynasties who influence banks from the outside, the Saud family essentially is the bank. With direct authority over state wealth and global partnerships, they can move markets with a single decision. The PIF alone has reshaped entire industries, from electric cars to international sports. For viewers, the House of Saud represents the pinnacle of modern financial dynasties, where royal power, oil wealth, and banking influence merge into one. Their story closes our countdown because it shows the ultimate transformation, from tribal rulers in the desert to global financial heavyweights whose decisions ripple across the entire world economy. This is not just a family fortune, it's a dynasty that truly rules the world's flow of money,